My name is Deb Van Dynen. I'm an Associate Professor of English Education at Hope College, and I'm the Director of the NEA Big Read and Little Read Lakeshore programs. The NEA Big Read and Little Read Lakeshore programs are Hope College programs in partnership with many area libraries, businesses, institutions, and organizations. The purpose of the NEA Big Read and Little Read Lakeshore programs is for people to come together around a story. However, it's not just coming together and reading the same story. We really want people to use the book and its topics and themes as a springboard to listen and learn from each other, to learn more about our community and the world at large. Come join us this year as together we read An American Sunrise, a book of poems by Joy Harjo. For our Little Read program, we invite you to read Fry Bread, a Native American family story by Kevin Maillard. Please visit our website, bigreadlakeshore.com, to find out more about our events, our programs, our guiding questions, and more about who we are and what we do along the lakeshore.
Hello and welcome to our Little Read Lakeshore event today. I'm Amanda, a Youth Services Assistant from Herrick District Library, and we are so happy to be helping to sponsor this event today. We would also like to thank Lakewood Construction for helping to sponsor this event as well, and give a special shout out to all of our area schools that are watching this event with us this morning. As we begin, I would like to respectfully share this land acknowledgement. Together, we acknowledge that we gather in West Michigan on the traditional land of the Peoria, Potawatomi, Odawa, and Ojibwe peoples, past and present. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations. As a community, we recognize the ever-present systemic inequalities that stem directly from past wrongdoings. We are grateful for the ways in which stories and words can speak truth and shed insight to these inequalities and wrongdoings, and also provide a way forward towards equality, justice, and understanding. Through these Big Read events and beyond, we commit to respecting and reconciling this long history of injustice and commit to be better stewards of the land we inhabit. So today we have with us Kevin Maillard, who is a professor of law at Syracuse University, a contributor to the New York Times, and a co-founder of Black Stream Partners, LLC. He has written for The Atlantic and provided on-air commentary to ABC News and MSNBC. He is the debut author of Fry Bread, a Native American family story, a picture book illustrated by Juana Martinez Neal, which won the Seibert Medal and the American Indian Youth Literature Honor. An enrolled member of the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma, he is based in Manhattan, New York. Thank you so much for joining us today, Kevin.
For having me. I'm so glad to be talking to everyone and to be sharing my stories, and we can talk about my book Fry Bread, which I have right here, and then I can read some of it, and then I can share some pictures of my studio with you. So right now I am talking to you from Oklahoma. I'm at my mother's house. This isn't the house where I grew up, but she's lived here for about 15 years. And so I'm really glad that you can see where we live. So good morning for all of this. So we're going to talk about how I make stories and things that I see in the world that are really inspirational for me to make stories, and just how authors work with words. And it's a really fun thing to have a job that is all about thinking about the best word possible to convey a description of something, an emotion, dialogue. And so sometimes in writing a book, I can think about what would be the perfect word for this page for almost an hour. And sometimes even after that hour, I can even not get the word that I want, and I need to come back to it for a whole nother hour. That's the business of writing. So all the things that I do as a professor, as a journalist, and also an author of books, it's all about conveying the thought that I have in my own mind to whoever's going to be reading this. So whether this is other professors, as a college professor that I am, whether it's the grown-up readers of the New York Times, or whether it is the very smart young readers that I have of a book, something like Fry Bread, I'm always thinking, am I getting this right? And am I conveying the right thing that I want everyone reading this to learn? So I have a picture that I want to share for you. And this picture is of a headstone in Vermont. Will we be able to bring that up on screen share?
We're still working on it. It's still uploading, but I can get it up in a second here.
Okay. All right. So I spend all of my summers in Vermont on a big farm in Vermont. And when you're in Vermont in the summertime, it's very green. It's very beautiful. There are lakes, there are rivers, and there are definitely mountains because we're in the Green Mountains in Vermont. And so I was on a hike with my two children. I have a boy who's in 4th grade and a girl who's in 1st grade. And this was last summer. And we were hiking on this mountain in Vermont called Mount Equinox. Right? So it's one of the biggest mountains in the area. Definitely not the biggest mountain in Vermont because there are a lot, but it's one of the biggest in the area. So we're at the top of this mountain on Mount Equinox, and I see that headstone. And the headstone says, Mr. Barbo. Mr. Barbo. And I thought, wow, there's a headstone on the top of this mountain, right? You climb all the way to the top. Well, we drove, right? We drove all the way to the top of the mountain, and then you have to climb the last way, right? Because it's real big. It would have taken us about 6 hours to climb up to the top. And I don't think a 1st grader at that time, a kindergartner, was right for that. So we drove up, and then we see the headstone at the top. Mr. Barbo right there. So I go closer. I look at it, and I was like, why is there a headstone here? The headstone is for a dog. And the headstone is from the 1940s. And last year, it was 2020. So we have this headstone from the 1940s, I believe. And I get closer, and all of the words, they're old, right? And it's on top of this mountain. So it's been through a lot of weather, a lot of rain, a lot of snow, a lot of different temperature changes. And so some of the etchings on the headstone are a little worn off. So I lean in closer to read it. And then I can see the words, and the words say something from the 1940s about a dog that was very, very much loved by a family that was accidentally shot by someone else on that mountain, and the dog died. So that's a sad story, but it's from the 1940s, but I'm looking at this so closely, right? And they leave this monument for their dog, right? It was shot by a hunter, right? The dog was shot by a hunter. And then from the 1940s all the way to 2020, last year, I was able to feel the sadness that they felt. I can still feel a little bit now when their dog died on that mountain almost 80 years ago. Think of what those words on that headstone were doing, right? Whoever had chosen the words on that headstone wanted people to remember that dog, and they wanted them to feel the same way they were feeling. It was interesting that 80 years had passed between that moment and when my children and I were on that mountain. And I had never met these people. I didn't know who the people were. I had never met the dog. I had never seen the dog. I can see a picture of the etching of the dog. But then because of those words, I was able to take part in that story. And this is what we do when we choose words. And just think of it. It wasn't a story that had pictures, like in a picture book, with pages that you flip, with an entire background that I could understand, but only a few choice words that were included on that headstone. Think of what they were doing. I want to choose the right words so that when someone else reads this, they will understand what I mean, right? They are conveying an emotion there, right? Because you hear the story and you can feel a little bit sad. You can also, when you read that headstone, you can feel what those people were feeling. So this is one of the things that I try to convey in everything that I write, whether it's for grown-ups, whether it's for professors, whether it's for young people. I want to teach people empathy, right? And what does empathy mean, right? Where you can understand what someone else is feeling. You can understand what their experiences are. Even if you've never met them, even if you're never going to talk to them. But instead, you are able to empathize and understand their point of view and how they see the world. So in picture books and books for young people, you are doing this with as few words as possible. Because if you notice in picture books, especially picture books like Fry Bread, there are not that many words on the page. And I want to show you the difference in what I mean here. So we're going to take a look at, I just picked a random page, and this is called Fry Bread is Flavor, right? There might be about 20 words on this page. But then when I was writing this, it didn't take me only like 20 minutes to write this. I wrote this stanza of this poem, and then I had someone else read it. And that someone else is my editor. And the editor reads it. And then the editor will make suggestions. Why don't we take out that word? Why don't we think of a different word here? Why don't we have the words match the pictures a little bit more closely? So that process, the back and forth of me writing, the editor reading, maybe another editor reads it, maybe someone else reads it. We would have an outside reader read these books as well. All of these people working together. So this phrase here, it could take about maybe even 6 weeks to write. There's so much to work with here. Think of how different this is if you look at the back matter. The back matter is all the stuff in the back. Look at all those words that are there, right? Like it's an entire essay, and it goes on for pages and pages and more pages. There is a lot of back matter in there, right? I'm a professor, so I like to write a lot of words, right? And then I wanted people to understand, and remember that word, empathize, thinking of someone else's point of view and being able to feel someone else's point of view. I wanted people to empathize with what I was writing about. But compare all of these words, like thousands of words, grown-up words right here, with the much fewer words that are on these pages. Fry bread is art, about 20 words. So when I am writing these books, it takes a long time to choose these very few words. So this is what you call the process. And in the process, that is the amount of work, the labor that you put into the making of a book. So here's a great comparison, right? Think of a movie that you've seen lately. Right? That movie could be Frozen. My kids watch a lot of Frozens. Why do I say Frozens? Frozen. It could be The Descendants. It could be something as young as Peppa Pig. So if you are watching one of those shows, usually they're about 30 minutes long. But how long did it take to create that show, or even a movie, which is about an hour and a half? It can take years to do that because the actors have to memorize their lines. They have to research and understand their character. The costume people have to get together all the clothing that people are wearing. The people that do the set have to make sure that the set looks like they want it, right? They have to construct everything. We have the director who has to come up with a vision. We have the producers that make sure that the picture or the TV show can be made. And then there are all the people behind the camera. There are all of the people holding the lights and the microphones. And all of that is the process. All we see when we're looking at the TV show or the movie is the show as it goes by very quickly in 30 minutes or maybe an hour and a half. But what we do not see is the behind the scenes. And the behind the scenes is where all the process, the labor, the work is. So for something like Fry Bread, which we're going to read shortly, for something like Fry Bread, it might take us about 15 minutes to read this book. But how long did it take to make the book? This book took, is anyone guessing? Let's wait for it. This book took 4 years to make. 4 years of making this. So I would have had years pass in between when I first thought of Fry Bread and the time it was actually in a bookstore for parents and kids to be able to buy. If you look on the back of Fry Bread, there are a bunch of people here on the back, right? We have a baby with red hair. Can you see that? This is actually my daughter. At the time, she was a baby. Now she's in first grade. So she's not a baby anymore, right? And the illustrator, Juana Martinez Neal, and this is what you do when you're creating a book. We wanted to have people of all hair color, all hairstyles, all skin color, because we wanted to show how diverse Native people can be. I'm an enrolled member of the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma, where I am here in Oklahoma, but we're not in Seminole Nation right now. That's about an hour away because I'm currently in Oklahoma City. But when we choose, and this is part of the process, the behind the scenes, Juana said, if we're going to have people of all different hair colors, all different face shapes, all different body types, we need to choose who's going to have red hair, someone's going to have blonde hair, someone's going to have black hair, someone's going to have cornrows here. So when we're choosing this, she chose baby Peregrine, who was a baby at the time, to have red curly hair. Baby Peregrine does not have red curly hair. She has dark hair and it's a little long. But then she chose this person right here. Look at this. Right? You see a person with long hair here, right? A big face. Does it look like anybody you know? That was me. I used to have long hair like that, but I don't have long hair anymore. I have short hair, right? So short that people always come up and say, were you in the military? And I have to say, no, I was not. But all of these people here, they are at frozen. Remember that word we just said? They are frozen in one point in time. Baby Peregrine wasn't even 1 year old here. Now she's 6. We also have my son, Hampton, who was about 3 at the time. Maybe he was 4. And now he's almost 9. 4 years ago. So this is frozen at one point in time because it's when the illustrator created it. And now here we are 4 years later. So let's take a look at where I made fry bread in my studio in Brooklyn, New York. So can we bring up the first picture of my studio? And I can show everybody where I work. This is my workspace. I have a bookshelf with a lot of books there. I also have some more books. I have my ancestor wall. And I had a phrase that my illustrator, Juana Martinez Neal, told me that says, walk like you have 1,000 ancestors behind your back. And so I love to do that because if we think about where we get our inspiration from and where I get my inspiration from for writing books, it's from my family. And so when I go to my studio every day, all those ancestors are there with me on the wall. They are behind my back and they are helping me write my stories. So I'm glad that you were able to have a look at my studio, at my brick walls, at my blue chair, at my work table, so you can see where I create my stories. Let's have a look at fry bread now. So, fry bread, a Native American family story. Actually, this is an old version of the book, right? And that's just part of the process, right? The words as the story comes out can change over time. So look, this might look like a printed book. It is a printed book, but it's an early version because then we changed it to a Native American family story instead of tradition, because tradition would imply that everyone does this. And not all Native families eat fry bread. So when we change it from a Native American family tradition to a Native American family story, then the story becomes my own Native American family story instead of a tradition, which means that everyone does this. They do it at a certain period. That's what a tradition is. But this is a story because this is my own experience. And I want people to understand, to empathize. And now, when I'm sharing with you how I did this, I'm sharing with you my process. Okay, let's turn into fry bread. All right. So here is the title page, fry bread. Notice what we have here. We have this grandma. She has a plate of fry bread. And we have the dedication here. So Juana dedicates her book to Pancho. I dedicate my book to Iris, to Nana. That's my mom. We all call her Nana because she's almost 90. So she's kind of like a Nana, right? To Iris, Nana, and all the women who teach us stuff. So this is dedicated to them. Fry bread is food. Flour, salt, water, cornmeal, baking powder, perhaps milk, maybe sugar, all mixed together in a big bowl. Fry bread is shape. Hands mold the dough, flat like a pancake, round like a ball, or puffy like Nana's softest pillow. She does have very soft pillows. It's early in the morning and I woke up just a little while ago and the pillows were very soft. Fry bread is sound. The skillet clangs on the stove. The fire blazes from below. Drop the dough in the skillet. The bubbles sizzle and pop. Here's a secret. Whose hand is that? Who is this making the fry bread? These kids are listening. They're like this. But what are they listening to? The sound of the fry bread. But who's making it? Fry bread is color. Golden brown, tan, or yellow. Deep like coffee. Sienna or earth. Light like snow and cream. Warm like rays of sun. Look at my son there. This is my niece. This is Babe Peregrine. This is someone that we put in the book. And this is my friend. Fry bread is flavor. See beans or soup. Smell tacos, cheese, and vegetables. Delight in honey and jam. Rise to discover what brings us together. Look at me. Oh, wait, this side. Look at me holding this big plate of fry bread. Look what's going on there. There's a tattoo on that arm. Look what's going on here. There's a tattoo on that arm. I was the one making the fry bread. Fry bread is time. On weekdays and holidays, supper or dinner, powwows and festivals, moments together with family and friends. Everybody's gathered around the table. Here's Nana right here. Here's the grandkids, right? Here's their mom or their aunt. The family's all getting together to eat. Fry bread is art, sculpture, landscape, portrait. Our daily craft, shared from teacher to student, a cycle of heritage and fortune. This woman is wearing patchwork. It's very colorful. The symbols and the shapes on the patchwork can mean different things. They could mean fire. They could mean ice. They could mean sky. So these patchworks are communicating. These patchworks, if they're communicating, that means these patchworks are stories. The people are also making baskets. And they're making dolls. Look, even the little dolls are wearing patchwork. The little dolls are telling stories. Fry bread is history. The long walk, the stolen land, strangers in our own world, with unknown food, we made new recipes from what we had. What's going on in this picture? We have the elders here. They're telling a story to the kids. Now, would you guess that this is a funny story? Is it a happy story? Maybe it's more of a scary story. Look at the expressions of the children, right? This kid has his mouth open. She looks very skeptical here, right? She's kind of like, what? Really? These other kids are looking like, wow. The elders are sharing with them the stories from the past. That's what elders do. We learn about what happened long before we were here from older people who would have gotten information from older people, even older than them. So this is what you would call an oral tradition, right? Where stories are passed down from the generations. Here, the elders are telling stories of the long walk, or in other tribes, and a lot of tribes in Oklahoma, it's called the Trail of Tears. People had land stolen from them by the government. And you think, wow, that's not very nice. That's worse than not very nice. That's terrible. Right? I want you to imagine in your own room, someone comes in and says, okay, this is not your room anymore. I'm going to take all of your toys. I'm going to take all of your Legos. I'm going to take your bed. I'm going to take your whole house. And now I'm going to live here. You have to go and walk 1,000 miles to go live somewhere else. Bye. See you later. How would you feel? You would not be happy at all. You are forced to do this, right? When people had to do this, when the federal government forcibly took lands away, then they say, go walk to Oklahoma. Go walk to this other part of Arizona. Go walk away from here. Those people tell the story of how they experienced it. They tell their children tell their children. It goes down through the generations, and now the elders are telling these children. Fry bread is place. Alaska, Kansas, all the way to Maine, down to Delaware, on to Georgia, over to Oklahoma, Colorado, and California, cities and lands we call home. And that's a map of North America. And my dog, who's sitting in the Atlantic Ocean. Fry bread is nation. There are over 500 different tribes in the United States alone. That doesn't even include the hundreds and hundreds more tribes that are in Canada. And also people in different countries that are indigenous people, meaning that they lived on that land first before colonists came. All these different tribes. Fry bread is nation. Abenaki, Apache, Arapaho, Ojibwe, Onondaga, Oglala Sioux, Narragansett, Navajo, Nipmuc, Seminole, Shoshone, Sac and Fox, hundreds and hundreds of tribes. We put all the tribes' names here in the back. And so now, if you are a member of a tribe, or maybe if you are associated with a tribe, you can go and find your tribe's name on the wall. And people like to send me pictures. I like that. Fry bread is everything. Round, flat, large, small, north, south, east, west, brown, yellow, black, white, familiar and foreign, old and new, we come together. What are they looking at here? Is it the moon? Or is it a big piece of fry bread in the sky? It could be both. I like to think of it as a big piece of fry bread, the biggest piece of fry bread ever made. Fry bread is us. We are still here. Elder and young, friend and neighbor. We strengthen each other to learn, change, and survive. There's my grandma that taught me how to make fry bread. Fry bread is you. And then at the end of the book, it has my own fry bread recipe. And look here. Here's my grandma. Her name was Fanny. She taught me how to make fry bread. And she makes fry bread very differently than other people might make fry bread. But that's what fry bread is, because it's a food that you share with your family. And so your family is different than other people's family, right? Like you live in different places. You might look different. You might have different accents in the way that you talk. And there might be foods that you make in a special certain way that would be made in a different special certain way by someone else. So just like there are so many different ways to make fry bread might be different sizes. Some people make it flat. Some people make it more round. Some people even make it with kind of a hole in the middle, right? Or a depression, like an indentation in the middle. Some people's fry bread might be very light in color. Some people's fry bread might be a little darker in color. There could be different ingredients. I put a little bit of sugar in my fry bread and I use cornmeal. I like to do it like that because that's how I'm used to doing it, because that's how my grandma taught me how to make this. Other people might say, ew, why would you ever put cornmeal or sugar in your fry bread? And your fry bread is the wrong shape. Fry bread is supposed to be flat like a pancake, not round like a ball. Your fry bread is wrong. That's not right. Recently, I shared my fry bread recipe with the New York Times. And so, you know, like on every article, you can comment. And someone commented on my fry bread recipe, And I said, this is how my grandma taught me how to make fry bread. And then someone in the comment said, that's not authentic fry bread because it uses sugar. Real fry bread only uses flour. And this fry bread does not use baking powder. That's my fry bread. That's my whole family's fry bread. It doesn't mean that it's wrong. That's what I wanted people to understand and empathize with, that your own identity, your own person, your own face, your own fry bread is right. And that's you. And I want you to be able to understand and empathize with the different ways that people look and how they feel. So I'm glad that you were able to share with me today in reading Fry Bread from my mom's house in Oklahoma. And then you were able to see my studio in Brooklyn, New York. And all of you, or some of you, or even most of you, are in Michigan. I'm so excited to be able to do all of this through the magic of the internet. And then we can get together and talk about my process, how I make books, and how we can all think of fry bread as a way of thinking good and understanding and empathizing with other people. Thank you. And now I think it might be time for some questions.
Wow, thank you, Kevin, for teaching us about how you made the book and having us think about empathy this morning. So I'll just introduce myself to everybody. My name is Nancy Gately. I'm an English secondary education major, and I am a member of the Pokagon band of the Potawatomi tribe. And being a member of the Potawatomi tribe, I would have loved a book like Fry Bread when I was younger. Just seeing some of my traditions in book form and representations that look like me would have been just a great joy to have as a child. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So let's jump into some questions. You talk a lot about how you made the book Fry Bread. And one of the things in Fry Bread is that each of the page has the ending of Fry Bread is. So was that intentional? Or how did you originally write it if that was not intentional?
I see that. Thank you, Kylie. So yes, I did write Fry Bread is at the beginning, and it is how I started writing it. And actually the editor liked it, and I was able to keep that. Because when we think about it, fry bread, it's definitely, you know, there are always like definitions. Just like what I was sharing about the New York Times commenter had said, like, fry bread is this, not that. So there are a lot of definitions of fry bread. Fry bread has sugar. Fry bread has cornmeal. Real authentic fry bread has this. But I also wanted to show that the definitions of fry bread are more than the ingredients. Fry bread, it's like experiences, it's history, it's art, the way that people make it. So fry bread itself is like a symbol. So when I say fry bread is a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Thank you, Kylie.
And now, in this presentation, we had the wonderful Dr. Debbie Reese join us, and she actually did a presentation on Wednesday titled From Wilder's Little House on the Prairie to Harjo's An American Sunrise, Words Matter with Dr. Debbie Reese. And she said that Native parents and kids across the country love seeing tribal nations' names on the end pages and on that interior page too. I love seeing mine, and I also loved seeing mine too on the page. So I was wondering, how did you research like all of the tribes and get them all on the pages?
Wow. So I'm so glad to see you. Hi, Debbie. Right? Debbie and I are friends. And actually, I'm so glad that I talked to Debbie before I did this, because Debbie is Nambe Pueblo. And then, yeah, I can see it right here. So here, remember, this is one of the early versions, right? And you could see the process. I was like, hey, Debbie, look at my book. What do you think about it? And then she said, oh, I love seeing my tribe's name there, but you need to put an accent over that E. And then so I said, oh my gosh, I do. So then when we were researching this was Juana's idea. And she said, I think we should put all the tribe names on the end papers. And then I thought, okay, let's do this. But some tribes have short names, right? So it might be a short name like Navajo Nation, 2 words. Other tribes might have a really, really long name. So some of these names might be, let's see, an example here. A really long one. The Bad River Band of the Lake Superior Tribe of Chippewa Indians of the Bad River Reservation, Wisconsin. There's like 20 words in that tribe name, right? And so we didn't put every single word there, because then I doubted that everybody walks around saying like, hi, my name is Kevin. And me and all of my other friends from the Bad River Band of the Lake Superior Tribe of Chippewa Indians of the Bad River Reservation, Wisconsin. I wanted to know what the local name was for everybody, right? When you're sitting around talking or you introduce yourself, right? They probably say, we're Bad River Chippewa. And so in researching all of this and trying to figure out how all these tribes call themselves in everyday speech, that took a really long time. So we had to call people. We looked on the internet. We asked people we knew, because we wanted to make sure, just like I shared with Debbie, we wanted to make sure that we got everybody's name right. Right? Think of it like someone mispronounces your name, right? So then we have Debbie here. What if someone pronounced her name, oh, hello, Debbie? And she'd say, that's not how you pronounce my name. My name is Debbie, right? So we wanted to make sure that we pronounced everybody's name correctly. And I think we did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just the importance of getting it right and making sure that people are represented correctly in how they represent themselves. So going off of the the wording in the book, we have a third grade teacher who loves how you incorporate similes into your story. And we're wondering what other figurative language did you include in the book? And how did you choose to incorporate figurative language, or was that a conscious decision?
Oh, yes. All right. So then I'm so glad that I remember what a simile is from my third grade class. I remember a simile is a description or a comparison that includes like or as. So in this book, when I say soft like Nana's or fluffy like Nana's softest pillow, that's a simile, right? Warm like sun. All of those descriptions. So that was definitely conscious because I was trying to describe, I remember, have people empathize. And empathizing is not just about emotion, but it could also be empathizing because we're understanding somebody else's experience. I want people to understand what it's like to eat and smell and taste fry bread. So when I use these similes, these comparisons and descriptions, I am trying to get those readers to understand how I experience this. And so I am putting my own experience through the pages. So then maybe 80 years from now, when somebody is reading Fry Bread, they'll be able to understand how I like fry bread too.
Okay, wow, that was awesome. And so our next question, sort of going off of was this intentional or not, is another question from Dr. Debbie Reese. And she sees that you're holding an advanced copy, and she's wondering, since the front cover is different than the published copy, how did you make those changes?
So we can make those changes, well, easily, like you can put it on a computer and change the font, right? But then we make the font a little different here. I think in the Fry Bread, this is the book that my mom has, right? And I'm at my mom's house. So she, of course, had the very first copy ever. And so this is a little bit darker. And I remember I said, I think I would like the bread to be the letters to be a little lighter in color. And this here, if you look very closely, it's almost like the color of fry bread as I cook it, right? It's almost kind of like orangish, reddish, brownish color, right? As if someone took a picture of my fry bread and then the texture in the letters is now put as the color inside. We also made the fry bread a little bit smaller so it doesn't take up the entire width of the book. It's more narrow or narrower. And we would have changed, there are a lot of changes to the cover. We would have changed a little bit of grandma's hair here. We would have changed how the fry bread looks on the cover. We would have changed how the dress, the skirt that grandma is wearing, we changed that. So a lot of these changes here, when we're making a little bit narrower, that would be a stylistic choice. When we're changing the color and making it kind of like less raw, maybe it's making the color a little more harmonious with the other colors in the page. But that's all definitely part of the process. And this is something, this is kind of a big, fancy, advanced word called paratext. And paratext means what is being communicated that's not obvious to every reader. So paratext would be like how we chose a Native American family story instead of a Native American family tradition. The paratext there is, I want to be able to have everybody relate to this, my own family story, instead of it being a tradition that's shared by everyone. So that choice that I'm making in changing the word, it tells a completely different narrative than tradition, because it's not for everyone. It's my story. It's one family story. When we change the hair, or maybe the looks, or maybe the shape of the fry bread, we could be doing this because we want the fry bread to be more round, like I make it. And then I definitely want to show my different and diverse way of making fry bread. We could change the color of people's skin because I want to show how there are more Native people of African ancestry, like my own family. These are choices that we are making that might not be obvious on the page, but then those choices are symbolic and they are conveying more stories without even having said anything. So that is what representation is. Representation, oh, look, I have someone that looks like my grandma on the cover. Oh, look, I actually have my own picture on the back of the book. Those representations can be very meaningful for people when they look at the book and they say, hey, I feel seen here.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for teaching us about representation in books, the ins and outs of writing a children's book, about empathy, and about how you wrote Fry Bread. I would also like to thank Herrick District Library for co-hosting this event and Lakewood Construction for sponsoring.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.